Hey guys, and welcome back to Wina Wonders. So today I'm going to be doing a semi-wrap-up slash favorites type of thing where I take you guys through some of the things that I've really been enjoying this month. So I guess let's start with books. The first thing that I want to talk about is Sally Rooney's Normal People. I already did a full-length review on this, so I'll link it down below. I won't go into it too much, but for those of you guys who are interested in this and who have heard about this but weren't really sure if you were going to pick it up or not, I would say definitely give it a go. Like try it out. I know that not everyone enjoyed it, but as someone who really kind of likes the psychology of relationships and someone who's very interested in what you can do with that kind of writing that is very stark and that sometimes, strangely enough, kind of deprioritizes dialogue by removing the quotation marks from the text, but still kind of highlighting dialogue because it feels very internal or very intimate when it's written that way. Next is kind of like a nerdier book favorite. So Mark Strand is one of my favorite poets, and Edward Hopper is my favorite contemporary artist. So Mark Strand has a book on Edward Hopper's work, and I really enjoyed that. I felt like that book was really kind of reading Mark Strand's journal almost. I mean, of course he doesn't go into depth about like his own experiences, but I just felt like he was able to talk very well about the composition of those paintings while also making it a deeply personal reflection on how you play with light and time and space and the different things that you can feel just by a shift in the environment, in the tone of something, in the position of a figure or a shadow. I'll be inserting some clips here where I show you some parts of the ebook and sort of talk you through certain paintings and certain snippets of text by Mark Strand.
Hey guys, okay, so let's talk about the Mark Strand Edward Hopper book. So the section I wanted to sort of go in depth with and share with you guys is Mark Strand's discussion on Chair Car, which is a 1965 painting by Edward Hopper. So this is sort of later on in Edward Hopper's career. And the thing that I really loved about this book is how Mark Strand discusses both feelings and geometry, and how Edward Hopper used this trapezoid shape to, forgive the pun, trap the viewer in the world of the painting. So Mark Strand sort of talks about how we both feel locked in and locked out at once. And this is because there is this sense of an outside world, but it's never anything that we can see. And the light doesn't look like it's moving at all. And there is this sort of static quality to the painting, even if supposedly it is something that's moving. And that's something that he does throughout his other work as well. But I think he does it exceptionally well here. Another very eerie detail is that the door has no doorknob. And this wasn't a time when doors were automatic yet, so there literally is this feeling of being trapped or feeling like you're going nowhere. And that tension was something very prominent in Edward Hopper's work.
The next favorite kind of bridges that space between books and bookish content. I've been really enjoying a masterclass by Billy Collins. If you guys aren't familiar with Billy Collins, I think toward the earlier days of this YouTube channel, I think back in 2015, I remember reading Ballistics by Billy Collins for a readathon and talking about it here. So if I can find that video, then I'll link it down below. Basically, Billy Collins is one of my favorite American contemporary poets. He writes in a language that is very accessible, like very conversational, but the real sort of cleverness in a Billy Collins poem, I think, comes from his play with sound and imagery and how he's always able to unlock new trapdoors within the poem that you are consistently sort of stumbling through. The masterclass was super insightful. It's that great balance of him being able to articulate like certain techniques that he finds useful and being able to discuss certain poems with such striking precision. Like he's able to identify exactly what it is that he wants you to pick up on, and I think that that's a very good trait for someone who would be hosting a masterclass. Another thing that I really enjoyed, and not gonna lie was kind of envious about, is how he brought on some of his MFA students and they shared their poetry and they kind of talked the audience and Billy, or like Billy there for the audience, through their process and how they sort of built the bones of that poem. And yeah, I was just like, holy crap, like what if you could have that kind of exposure or that kind of experience? I was so envious. Now we can move on, I guess, to other things, like other events and other sort of fun project-y type things that I've been doing. I've been sort of attending like Zoom webinars and Zoom workshops, mostly because that is the kind of thing that I do for work, like running those events. So I did have to do my research, but I think it got to the point where I was learning all of these things for work and I just wanted to see them applied in the context of something that I enjoy. So I started going to these workshops that were hosted by Not a Cult Media. They are an indie press that is run out of LA, I think, based on the time zone, based on the fact that I had to get up every morning at like 6 a.m., 5 a.m. to attend these things. But I really, really enjoyed them. The session that was the most fun for me, I think, was the one that was hosted by Jose Olivares. They actually recorded this, so I think I can leave a link to the recording below. I also attended a symposium which was hosted by Chingbee, or Conchitina Cruz. I did a poetry talk video on her work a couple of years ago. I'll link that in the description bar too. Oh my god, I hope I don't forget. Like sometimes I forget to link the things that I say I'll link, and sometimes like that pisses me off. Like if I were a viewer, I'd be like, what's wrong with her? But anyway, okay, so I went to this symposium that was hosted by Chingbee. So that one was about the role of Asian writers during the Cold War. And it was so interesting to kind of see how the sort of transfer of knowledge and how the education programs that were run here by the American government really sort of helped influence the way that publishing culture is here now, the way that workshop culture is here now, the way that the Dumaguete workshop here in the Philippines kind of has become the local Iowa scene, where there is that sort of gatekeeping, I guess, in that sense. One of the other interesting things that was talked about in that symposium is how MFA programs, sort of being modeled after the Iowa workshop, have also kind of learned to prioritize the personal over the political, almost to this, like the point of divorcing the two. And I kind of get where that's coming from, because even as an early reader, I think especially pre-2016, when we were sort of lucky enough to be sheltered in a world that didn't need to have us, I guess, overtly care about these things. Like back then we sort of had the luxury of like separating ourselves from situations, whereas now we are so clearly part of the narrative and so clearly a deciding force in our own futures that we're all sort of hoping we didn't completely miss the boat, I think. Yeah, so building on that, there was this very interesting discussion on how like now things like identity politics and gender politics have kind of also been co-opted to present themselves as something personal that is sort of devoid of the political, which is strange because the personal is political. It's just that sometimes there's sort of this weird veneer there. Like, we don't like it when we feel like we're being fed a message directly. And there was also the question of like, how political should poetry be? Like maybe you're confusing one action for the other. Like maybe you can only do so much like through your poems in that sense, and a lot of it is really going out there and taking social action. So yeah, I have none of the answers to these very interesting questions, but I like being part of the discussion, and I did like that exchange. Like I kind of enjoy very much turning things around, like over and over and over in my head until I sort of argue myself into a wall. I've also been watching a lot of TV shows that I think are very smart and I think are very literary in their sensibilities. So the first one is kind of obvious, Normal People. It's a Hulu adaptation of Sally Rooney's book, and I actually watched the TV show first, so that was a very good experience for me. Oh my god, Paul Mescal, he's so dreamy, for lack of a better term, chemistry with Daisy Jones, who plays Marianne, is just through the roof. Like, they're so cute together, and I think that the script is really well written, and there's just so much ambiance to the series and the way that it was shot. If you like Call Me By Your Name, I think you will enjoy this very much, especially if you like those like long immersive shots of scenery. Like, oh my god. On Netflix, my friend Ostier introduced me to Midnight Gospel. Midnight Gospel is this animated show slash podcast where they have really funky animation kind of happening, but then the actual conversation between the characters is in this podcast format. Oh my god, it's gonna rain. If you guys hear thunder, that's like legit thunder. So yeah, so in Midnight Gospel, every episode is sort of dedicated to one topic. So for example, there's one on like the experience of taking drugs and should drugs be legalized. There's one on forgiveness. There's another one on loneliness. There's one about sort of having to give in to this feeling of hopelessness, to be able to come to peace with tragedy and grief. And then there's also one on magic and sort of the difference that intention can make. So I really enjoyed that. I think it was sort of a mistake to kind of binge listen to that, because for a couple of days, like, I was super mega emotional and just kind of contemplating the state of the world and the state of my life. But that said, I did enjoy it a lot, and I think that I would definitely recommend it to anyone suffering through these times, which is basically everyone. This May, The Face, featuring Matty Healy from the 1975 came out, and I love the 1975, but I do recognize that a lot of people sometimes like get freaked out by Matty's personality, and I don't blame them. He's the kind of personality I think that you either love or you just can't stand. But Matty in this podcast is very like straightforward, very sober, and I think that the conversations are just very insightful. My favorite one was the one with Stevie Nicks, and Stevie Nicks is just like such a badass. Maddie sort of picks her brain about the concepts of art, about her creative process, about what it's like working with people, and what it's like sort of being a woman who has had to work primarily in a man's world, especially coming from the point of view of someone who's lived through like the 60s, the 70s, which were definitely a lot more sexist than our current times. Although one would argue our current times are just like sexist in a different way. Yeah, so I would definitely recommend that if you're looking to sort of get that creative rush, if you are looking to be inspired to do something or to keep creating through this pandemic. Another favorite of mine is How Did I Get Here, featuring Jay of Day 6. So you guys might notice like the posters on my wall, and that's because my favorite band is Day 6. That's Jay. So he's the one who hosts the podcast, and it is in English for people who are wondering. It's in English, it's by Dive Studios, it's on Spotify. Basically every episode, Jay talks about a phenomenon that he's not familiar with, and he and his producer slash co-host Diane kind of talk about what that thing is, and it's just so fun to sort of listen to Jay discover these new things. Like, even if I know what some of these things are, I feel like it's just fun to hear someone with his personality kind of dive deeper into them. So for example, they have a topic that's on like flat earthers. Like, why are flat earthers a thing, and like why do they believe what they believe? And then there's one on the Mandela effect, and then there's another one that is on zodiac signs, which I found really funny, because like Jay doesn't believe in them, but then everything that Diane would say about like Virgos and stuff, he was like, yeah, like that's me. And I find that dynamic like super bomb and super funny. So if you guys are looking for a podcast that's a little bit easier to listen to, I guess, and a little bit like more chill, then I think you would definitely enjoy How Did I Get Here. Speaking of Day 6, they also came out with a new album this May, and I guess that's my segue to talk about their album, The Book of Us Demon. So freaking good. The title track is called Zombie, and they actually recorded two versions. So there's like a Korean version and an English version, and both are equally good. You know, sometimes like when you listen to songs in their original language and then you have them sort of translated into English, it just doesn't resonate the same. Like, it doesn't hit the same. Here, they both hit like same magnitude, just in a different way. And I guess I'm sort of chalking that up to the fact that Jay is a native English speaker, and that Brian, the lyricist, also is very fluent in English. So I have a feeling it's less of like translating that into literally like what it means, and more of translating that into language that will resonate. The 1975 also have a new album called Notes on a Conditional Form. It's a very super duper long album, and I don't think it's for everyone. I know that a lot of people are like, what the fuck is like going on with the 1975? Like, are they okay? And as someone who's like their age, I don't know, at this point, like, I'm not so concerned about like conciseness or whatever. Like, I will enjoy it. So I really enjoyed that, and I think that there are some really good songs on there. Of course, not all like 20 plus tracks are my favorite, but I enjoyed them nonetheless. And I think that if you guys are very into sort of 90s inspired music, or like, in Maddie's words, pop songs that sound like they're drowning, I think you guys will definitely enjoy this album. So I think that's sort of it for like music, podcasts, TV shows. I've been sort of getting back into booktube also, so I've been enjoying watching everyone's videos. So I've been watching videos from Katie and Nick from Books and Things, T-Hags and Deboki from Okidoki Boki, as well as Petra from Petra U, and also Chrissy, of course, from Chrissy Books and Berries. So yeah, and I've been discovering some new like Pinay booktubers, and it's so great to see so many people like, it makes me so happy. There's this Filipino booktuber, her name is Jarm, and she runs the channel Jarm's Chapter, and her personality is just so refreshing, and the way that she does reviews I think is very engaging. So maybe you guys would want to go over there and subscribe to her. Also, I want to ask if you guys have any favorite booktubers at the moment. Please let me know, because I've been out of the game for so freaking long. Like, I feel like, I don't know, I feel like a lot of the people that I used to follow have sort of stopped doing booktube. And yeah, like, nowadays I'm not really sure like who else to watch aside from the people that I mentioned, and also Todd the Librarian. I love Todd's videos forever, like, he's so funny. But yeah, please let me know who you've been following on ye old booktube. Last but not the least, I want to talk about some things that have been keeping me sane. So number one is working out. I've been exercising 4 times a week. I've been doing mostly weight training and then some HIIT and some ab work like tossed in there. And I just want to say that like endorphins are a lifesaver. Like, when you think you're going insane, I feel like endorphins will save you 10 out of 10 times. I've also been cooking a lot, obviously because of the pandemic. Like, ordering out all the time isn't really a practical thing to do, so I've been cooking a lot, and I've really been enjoying that. I feel like there is something very therapeutic about it. For projects, I've been working on this weekly zine called Running. It's in collaboration with my friend Raph, who I did a Let's Fite episode with. I'll link that below too. Yeah, and basically Raph goes out to run every day, and he takes photos of things, and we were sort of interested in the juxtaposition of like those photos with poetry that problematizes entrapment and sort of thinks about entrapment in a new light. So yeah, it's mostly like a poetry / creative nonfiction zine where we have a couple of photos a week, and then some poetry from me and Raph. So yeah, I'll link that below. It's 100% free. You can just download it, read it for kicks, enjoy it. I hope you like it. And I think that's it for this video. Thank you guys so much. It feels so good to do like a favorites video and to share my favorites with you guys again. Yeah, let me know if you've read any of these books, watched any of these shows, listened to any of these podcasts. I'd love to know what you think. That's it for now, and don't forget to like this video if you liked it, and subscribe if you haven't already. I'll see you guys next time. Bye!